Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Mass protests have swept across the United States today against the temporary travel ban on people from 7 Muslim-majority countries imposed by the Trump administration last week. Some of the biggest rallies have been at airports where there's still confusion about how to implement President Trump's order. Sudan, Somalia and Libya are 3 of the countries named in President Trump's travel bans. People there face having their visas to the United States suspended for 90 days while a detailed security review is carried out. The BBC's Dayo Yusuf reports.
No ban, no wall, New York for all!
In a country built by immigrants, many find Donald Trump's travel ban unpalatable. Since the signing of the executive order, thousands took to the streets in cities across the nation, sparking chaotic scenes at some airports. But amidst all the confusion, the president defended his decision, saying, "This is not about religion. This is about terror and keeping our country safe." There are some Americans who support Trump's move, saying these are the promises he made during his campaign.
Donald Trump said that this is temporary, so I trust him. His #1 job is to protect the American people, and I think he's doing it. And he said he was going to do it, so that's why he was voted in.
The travel ban targets 7 countries with Muslim-majority population, including Libya, Somalia and Sudan. Already, this new order has affected would-be immigrants in Africa like Fatma. She and her family had their travel plans cut abruptly.
We were hoping to be taken to the orientation center by April. All that is gone now. Our only hope is to persevere because we're Muslims. I've never seen Somalia. I wasn't born there. I don't know anything about it. The US has rejected me, and I was hoping to get a good education and a better future. Here in Kenya, I'm not getting any of that, and I can't go back to Somalia. I'm very worried.
One family had traveled all the way from Lebanon, and despite having reached America, they were turned back at the Philadelphia airport.
My son had been in America for more than 3 years, and they didn't even let me call him. There is no humanity.
Their American dream eradicated with a stroke of a pen. Nonetheless, Donald Trump stands firm on his decision not to be moved by all the protests against him throughout the country. Dayo Yusuf, BBC.
Well, with me now is London-based American immigration lawyer Karnig Dukmajian, who works with people seeking entry into the United States. Karnig, it's all so confusing. Are people who've got green cards but come from these 7 countries allowed to go back into the States or not?
You're right, it is confusing, and that's in part because of the way that this has been implemented. If you are, to answer your question specifically, if you are a national of one of these countries, but you do hold a green card, there has been a statement made by the Department of Homeland Security that you will be allowed in, that you will fall under an exception that allowing you in will be in the national interest. However, they still say that it's a case-by-case sort of decision. That said, I wouldn't anticipate any issues, but I would be cautious.
And what if you had a passport from another country? Say you didn't have a US green card, but you had a British passport,
yeah,
but came from Somalia. Would you be allowed in?
Great question. This is something that we are currently still trying to figure out. There has been inconsistent information out with respect to how to apply the order. The FCO, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, in a statement recently said that that dual nationals essentially wouldn't be subject to the order. The U.S. government was silent on that. In fact, the Department of State said no, actually dual nationals would be subject to the order. I understand very recently Boris Johnson made some statements in Parliament saying no, we have received assurances. It's still to be seen.
Also confusing, as we keep saying. But I mean, it's also got a mention in the African Union today because, like we said, there are 3 African countries involved: Libya, Sudan and Somalia. It got a mention today at the heads of states meeting in Ethiopia, the outgoing chair of the AU, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Let's just have a quick listen of what she had to say.
The very country to whom our people were taken as slaves during the transatlantic slave trade have now decided to ban refugees from some of our countries. What do we do about this? Indeed, this is one of the greatest challenges and test to our unity and solidarity.
So a big challenge, according to Mrs. Dlamini Zuma. Karnig, is there anything African leaders could do to put pressure on the United States to lift this ban on these three countries?
I think it's going to be difficult. It's a political question, certainly. We have seen Canada and the UK, their leaders, be able to sort of leverage their relationship with the US to have some exemptions put into place. I imagine it'll be more difficult for other countries, and certainly these countries that have been determined to sort of have ties to terrorism, to be able to exact those kinds of exemptions. But the key is going to be to petition, to have your government petition sort of the U.S. and to lobby the U.S. And to leverage any kind of ties or sort of relationship that is there to be able to ease these restrictions. But I think it's going to be difficult, and we're just going to have to wait and see for the 90 days.
Karnig Dukmajian, thank you very much for coming to the studio to talk to us here on Focus on Africa.
Thank you.
Well, the chair of the AU Commission, Kusuzana